Hey guys, how's everybody
Hey, hey,
doing?
hey,
So,
hey.
All right,
What?
so we don't have Amy with us today, so this is probably going to go bad fast. She normally keeps us on track. Um, let me see. Sean, can you swap me? Can you stick me in the other panel? Because seeing myself to the left, there we
yeah,
go.
there you go. You got to be
I
facing
know.
in. You got to be facing
There,
in.
there we go. There we go. I'm like, uh, throwing off my periphery there. Anyway, yeah. So Amy's not around, so we'll figure it out. What we're going to do. Sean, you get to pick up the slack. It's going to be great.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
You got
RQ's
this.
still.
Why don't you know what I was thinking? Jared and I were talking about this briefly earlier. We get a lot of emails about what we do. Jared, I know you get this from time to time. You got friends who birds of a feather. They're, hey, I'm thinking about licensing such and such. Do you have any ideas? Or I get people who ask me all the time about, hey, can you help me out? Can you tell me how to get something licensed with WB? Or I mean, it comes up a lot. Do you get that?
Um, yeah, specifically a couple years ago, I had something come up, and it was it was a difficult one to work through because I knew the situation with the licensor and uh, the guy who's wanting it was really eager, really into the property, and I didn't want it to seem like I was trying to shoot him down or shoot down his idea, but I was trying to let him know like this is going to be pretty difficult, and you're kind of a small operation, but yeah, that's a difficult thing to navigate.
Yeah, it really is. I had a long conversation yesterday evening with a guy. Again, it comes up with my neighbors. Of course, they're looking for something to have in common to talk about over the fence sometimes. But yeah, sincerely, guys who work in our industry, builders, creatives, guys who are into whether it be action figures, movie prop replicas, statues, what have you. And they want to take it to the next level. Of course, you reach out, no different than we've done at some point over the years, hey, how do I go about such and such? Because there's no real manual for it. You can't just call up Disney. You can't just call up WB and go, hey, I want to license XYZ. It's kind of a weird thing how it all takes shape. And I think people are surprised. I was talking with Matt Munson. A lot of people know Matt from the RPF. This was some time ago, like a year ago. We were working on like an 89 batarang or something. And Matt had really studied the piece and had some info to share. And we were just going, you weren't back yet when we were working on that, were you?
No.
Yeah, it was just me and Tyler messing with that one. Anyway, we were taking a deep dive, and he's into a lot of other things, and he had some ideas about some stuff. He was just asking about licensing and particularly at WB. And do you get into the museum? And can you see this? And can you see that? And I felt like I was just saying no. It was almost like I was trying to dissuade him in retrospect.
Yeah,
Kind of to your point, like
that's what I felt like too.
I'm like,
Yeah.
no. And I'm like, and do they do that? And I'm like, no. And it was a lot of no's. And probably he
Oh,
was thinking, man, he's really trying to shoo me away, from this topic. And it wasn't that at all. It's just sometimes it's not what people think. They in particular when it comes to things like reference. When you hear about a studio, like WB that's got this everybody knows about the Batman warehouse where all the Batmobiles are and that sort of thing, or in particularly the where Batman stuff is stashed. They just picture this particular room in a warehouse. It's not so much like that, but well, actually, it is kind of like that now I think about it. But it's a tough thing to get into. Just because you're a licensee, you don't just get to go. There's some hurdles that you have to clear. And then if you want to reference something like the Lost Boys bottle. Hey, I know it's there. It's on such and such a shelf. I saw it. Tracking it down, actually making the appointment to get in. It's not as easy as you think. You spend a ton of money. You would think that club, if you will, is open to you, and it can be, but it's difficult too. And then when it comes to licensing, it doesn't matter. Hey, I know a guy. You want to drop my name? It's not going to do you any good. Right? So I was just I've caught myself. And then last night again, this guy's asking me all these questions, and I'm like, no, none of what you're asking happens. That's not the way it is. And it's just a weird thing when you think about licensing. Something we mess with every day. People are interested in it, as Jared, like you and I were saying. It's Tuesday to us. It's just something we do. And when we talk about, well, how about this? Do we want to get a new license with that? We're familiar with the process to such a great extent. It seems normal, but I guess when you start breaking it down, yeah. I mean, it's easier, like you were saying, if you're a small operation, the first thing, whomever you're talking to, if you happen to get to a category manager, the first thing they're doing is looking you up online while you're talking to them. They're typing, they're looking at your website, seeing who you're working with. And yeah, it is hard with a newer company to do that. I always
Yeah,
tell people, you got to start with the low hanging fruit usually.
yeah, and for that licensor, their interest is to kind of put the best image out there for the property they're representing,
Right.
and they definitely look. They check on who's knocking on the door, like who's going to be sponsored by Pepsi.
Yeah.
They want to make sure that whoever is going to be awarded that license is going to represent it in the best way possible, because really it's about showing off the brand more than anything else, and they want it to look good, and of course they want units to be sold and royalties to be made.
Mhm.
But it's making the property look good, and they want to make the property continue to look good, and they want to put it in the right hands of the people who will take care of it and show it off and make it look put on a high shelf, so to say.
Yeah. Now, wouldn't it be a good idea for someone to go to like a license expo? Would that help them kind of get a little closer to getting what they're looking for?
Yeah.
That's kind of tricky, but
yeah, because you got to have the appointment. It's funny.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before. You still got to manage to get the appointment. It's like, let's just keep using WB. I mean, you could same thing for Universal. It doesn't matter. Uh, let's say you're completely green, like Sean before you came to work with us. And just so everybody knows, Sean is one of our shop techs, and he does a lot of graphics work with us. He's here with me in Myrtle Beach, and he's usually behind the scenes directing and putting these things together for us. So it's good that you took a minute to be with us today, Sean. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you having me.
But Sean asks a lot of great questions because he is a collector, and we'll talk you to death about Star Wars. Nothing wrong with that. But he's a diehard collector. Attends a lot of events, buys everything from hot toys to our stuff before he came to work here. So a lot of the questions he asks, it's sometimes I have to. Hey, that's a good question. It's not just something you're born knowing. And License Expo is a wonderful example. So if Sean, let's say you never met me and you never came to work for us, and you came up with an idea and you're like, damn it, I want to license something from Jurassic Park. Well, you might go online and look at Universal's website. You might dig around. You might do a little Googling. You're just not going to find a phone number. You're not going to find. I do think there's a generic contact us for licensing, isn't there, Jared? Isn't there a generic? I mean, you got to dig for it, but I think there might be a generic line where you could send an email if interested in character licensing or something like that.
Probably. Having not looked it up myself, I don't know.
No, and it's been forever, but we didn't go that route. But that's about the easiest way to do it. And even then, you probably won't get a response to your email. You kind of gotta. It's a tough thing to shoehorn yourself in on. But if you get your appointments set up at License Expo, yeah, that's a start. Sometimes you can just blindly walk around and walk up on. I was trying to think of who represents a lot of music acts. Sony Signatures, that's a good example. Let's say you wanted to license something from Kiss or name your band. Sony Signatures used to represent a lot of bands that way for just merch, action figures and stuff. You could probably walk up to their booth and say, "Hey, I want to talk to somebody in licensing." That would get your foot in the door. But even then, then you got to take a meeting with somebody, and they're gonna, hey, how are you going to manufacture? What's your points of distribution? How are you getting this stuff out? How are you landing it? They're going to want to know you've had a little experience, and you usually need to be able to point to something. It's kind of like when you're a kid. How do you get credit if you never had any credit? You know, it's that weird situation.
They are at that show to be accessible. Like they're not looking down your nose and like, oh no, you can't come in. It's just that they got appointments they've already made with people they know.
A
And
couple of them are looking down their nose saying you can't come in.
sometimes.
A couple of them.
I do have a story that involves someone we know where I did just no appointment, nothing, walked in blind, sat down and was like, hey, here's what we're thinking of doing. This was 10 years ago. And he was like, this looks pretty cool. I like this. Let's put this together. And in 20 minutes, it was like, boom. And then the next week, deal members are going back and forth. And then the next 3 to 4 weeks, contract signed, you know, stuff being submitted.
Oh, it's great.
It does happen. I was surprised it happened that early or that easily, but it was, I think that's a rare exception.
Yeah, but you're right. You're absolutely right. It can happen, and especially with some of the boutique IP licensing companies. You know, like you know, hey, you want to do something from Conan or Krull? You know, yeah, you might be able to get in there and get something going, and that's the lower, although awesome stuff. Not belittling that.
Oh, Conan guys are rad. They're fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just saying it's a little easier than landing JP, you know, Jurassic Park or something. You know, some of when you've got to go through Universal and Amblin and you know, some of them can be difficult when you're new. Speaking of which, it was just 2 or 3 days ago we landed our first item. So apropos of nothing, just throwing this out there. We landed our ruby slippers. That was the first thing we landed 36 months ago.
Oh, okay.
So it's been just 36 short months that we landed our first prop replica.
Uh-huh.
This week's our anniversary. Yay! You guys are so enthusiastic.
Yeah.
You're
Ruby slippers.
Yeah, you're employed because of it. Yeah, that's right. That's what. There you go. Work champagne.
I think you asked me like, "Hey, do you want any of these ruby slippers?" And I was like, "My mom would have loved them, but yeah, it's not really my thing."
This is how quick we get pulled off course. So, Adam. So Adam Savage. I was sending him some stuff early on when we started, and I'm like, "Hey, you know, you want to review it. You know, if you don't, keep it. Tell me what you think of it. You know, I was just wanting some feedback from our peers." And I think I put it in an email. I'm like, the weird thing about the ruby slippers, it's you know, because I'm a gadget guy. I like modular things. I like the stuff that clicks and clacks and shoots fire and does things. And you wouldn't think I'd like the ruby slippers as much as I do. But so I'm writing this thing out and just an email, and I'm like, you know, I never knew I needed the ruby slippers in my collection until I got a pair, and I had haphazardly just traded for a pair. I didn't even try to get them in my collection. I was talking to a guy like over on the RPF or something, and he's like, "Hey, you want to trade for this pair of ruby slippers?" And I'm thinking, sure. And it's easier to sell those than this thing I was trading for, and I just figured I'd flip them and sell them as soon as they came in. But it was this handmade pair of ruby slippers. It's like 20 something years ago. And they came in and they were so pretty. They were so awesome, you know, never having seen them up close. I'm like, yeah, I know the ruby slippers. Ruby slippers are cool. I just don't think I need them in my collection. And as soon as the light hit them and bling, I loved them instantly. I was captivated by them. I don't know. We've talked about iconic props before. They're certainly in the top 10 when you think movie props.
Maybe top 5.
Yeah.
Like they are
Sure.
up there.
Yeah, anybody who doesn't even know about movie props the ruby slippers. I mean, when you hear the ruby slippers went for $32 million or a pair of them, of course they did. You know, people, they're not like, really? It's like, of course they did. They're that iconic. So anyway, the point I was making was, until you actually have them in your hand, you don't know how much you dig them. And that kind of happened. I didn't expect Adam to do a video on them, and then he did that wonderful video on for them. And these are awesome. Once they're in your collection, they're so iconic. Anyway,
I think that same that same effect probably struck him too. He opened them up, saw them like, wow, these are really nice. I got to make a video on these.
I think so. And the same thing could happen to you. But anyway, happy anniversary to us for landing those ruby slippers. I was so ready to just quit and fold up the tent by the time those things got in. I was so discouraged. There was so much work in those things. Uh, you know what? There's another good segue. Let's talk about, since we're talking about licensing. Anyway, so we'll wrap licensing up. To answer your question, Sean, yes, License Expo is a wonderful place to go and get licensing, because to Jared's point, sure, you can walk up and sometimes you can have an instant rapport, and sometimes you really can score. Now with the bigger properties, some of the bigger licensees, think about the juggernauts. I won't mention any in particular, but man, you see some broken hearts coming out of some of those rooms. Uh, uh, a couple of the larger companies, the larger IP holders, they have their own floor at License Expo, and you've got to go through multiple layers of installation to get to a category rep. You know, you got to have an appointment, and then one person confirms it, then the next person, and then finally sometimes three before you get behind the magical tent where it's all opened up and you get to have a conversation about what you want to do. And some of those you just can't walk in, and you kind of got to be loaded for bear and have it together when you go in. You get one shot. It's like your audition, if you will. And personalities are important. You know, we've talked about that a lot with licensing. I don't think you can just go in and, I mean, sure, maybe some of the smaller properties you could just throw some money at it and they're happy if they get the guarantee. But more often than not, what we're seeing is, you know, you get that license, you got to perform over the course of that license, because when you're not guaranteed a renewal when your time is up. If you've licensed for 2 years, 3 years, whatever, and you want to continue your relationship with a given studio, you kind of have to have done some stuff. And even at that point, if you've made them some money, your category manager, they better like you. They better like working with you, because if you've been difficult, or, I mean, personalities are important in this business, like with any. But I would say a, a third of the relationship or more, half, right, is you want to get along with your product development team. You know, regardless of your studio, you
Yeah.
want to. You know, your category manager, you want to have as strong as rapport as you can. You want them to care about you, and fortunately, everybody with whom we work right now, man, we love them. We love all of our current licensees. But as I've complained about some of the other ones, some of them just don't care. They're checking a box to fill out that category, and you've paid your guarantee, and sometimes it's hard to get them on the phone after that. But all of our current guys, we love them. And that's what's so good about this year. We're excited about all the current relationships moving forward. But in that same vein of things, people liking to hear about this kind of stuff, we could talk a little bit about, you know, the process. When we've talked about this in other videos, the way you would land something. So let's take an item like today. We just got the hunter seekers in. And we talked about those a little bit in the last video. The hunter seekers, man, they've been a year and a half in the making. Something so simple, seemingly simple, shouldn't have taken that long. And that's just a case of it having gone in and out of a few factories to finally get to the one we liked. And we showed the drawer of hunter seekers. Those were just samples, multiple takes, you know, where you grind for months, factory sends you a sample, and you're like, grind for another month or two, you get another sample. It's so laborious. And I was telling Jared earlier when we were talking about the hunter seekers, I was like, yeah, it's they're awesome. Don't get me wrong, but we worked on them for so long. It's finally it's the pizza you slaved over all day that you don't want to eat now. You know, you spend all that time, you know, in the kitchen, and by the time you land the item, especially if it's delay after delay after delay, you know, you're kind of robbed of that honeymoon period, that new car smell that you want. So as much as I love the hunter seekers and I think they're fantastic, and it's a small run, you know, we've engineered 24 other projects since then. that are now in the pipeline. So when something like that, when it just takes forever, that can be hard if you're new to the business, and you're like, man, this should have been out a year ago, or 8 months ago, whatever. And then you finally land that item, and you're like, okay, well, let everybody know it's here. Let's fill those orders. And but of course, you have a sense of accomplishment. It's just you can get beat up in the process, I guess is what I'm trying to say. When you've just worked on it and grinded and pushed back here, and you get, oh, we got to get packaging approval. Oh, we got to do. Oh, what do you mean the outer shipper box isn't the right corrugate? All those little things we go through, those trials and tribulations. Yeah, you can flirt with burnout. I was thinking about that last night. How many times we've seen that with our counterparts. Tyler, who we all love, of course. Tyler got burned out. Tyler was burned out when we started Paragon, and he was tired then. And I talk to him all the time, but he's so happy not to be messing with the minutia, the bureaucracy of licensing. I mean, it can wear you down, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of facets to it. There's um, so many elements to it, and when you're a smaller company and you are wearing a lot of hats, you have to handle a lot of those yourself, and that makes it, you know, a difficult thing. And you just want to be like, why can't this just be done right?
Yeah, how many times have we said? Yeah, I mean, we say it all the time,
Yeah,
and I mean, you got fried out on. Now, this is just about prop replicas. So when we think about what we do, it's kind of multifaceted. In this collectibles end of film and television that we mess with, pop culture. You've got television, you've got film, you've got comics. I mean, we're it's a broad brush, but I mean, you said it best when you had to take a break a while back on prop replicas. Prop replicas are hard, and you went to
they are.
to live with action figures for a while. You were just done, and
Replicas are hard because, and we discovered this. I mean, I discovered this years and years ago working on the first Hellboy. We were doing replicas for Guillermo del Toro's first Hellboy back in 2004, and I'd worked on the Cronin mask, and it was like, hey, yeah, we'll do the mask. It'll be cool. We'll do the Samaritan, the big revolver that breaks open. And Guillermo brought us the samples, and he got to handle the real props. We're like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. This is so cool. And they were a grind because it's not something that you can fake. A statue can be all polyresin. It can be all resin. An action figure can be all PVC. It can be all plastic. It gets the job done. A prop replica, in order to elevate it to where it needs to be, especially when you're going after that high dollar market, and you want to make the best thing that you can make,
Mhm.
you're looking at multiple materials that are sometimes difficult to source, or they have some uh, just elements that are difficult to make them work together. There's resin, there's aluminum, there's brass, there's injection plastic. Sometimes there's some exotic materials that are like, well, the real one was made out of this. That's going to be really hard to make it out of that material, but we will try our best. So yeah, all these things that have to be combined together to make a real world thing as it was in the movie is a difficult thing. And the Hunter Seeker is a good example of that. People are wondering, like, well, why did it take so long? It's all metal. It's all metal work. It's all CNC'd and machined. It's not something that can be just done and made a mold. Like, here's your mold, just inject it over and over again in plastic. Each one has to be handmade, and I mean handmade by, like, somebody's got to sit there with the CNC machine and make sure that the right cutter is on there, the right bit. It's being cut within spec. There's no markings or scratches on the metal, um, because usually with a plastic piece or an injection toy, there's a mark on it, paint over it. There's no painting on these. The material is what you see. That's
Yeah,
the finish.
it's got to be clean or it's not.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing to make, and that happens over and over again in prop replicas. Is the Sometimes you're not painting. The metal is the finish. the metal that you carve out and tool down and sand, that's what it is. There's no painting, there's no hiding any sins of it. It's got to look super sharp, and that's it. Or else, yeah, that one's rejected. On to the next one. So yeah, they're difficult items to make.
Yeah, yeah, they really are, and sometimes you just feel fried. You're just you're pushing a boulder uphill. Yeah, it's tough,
Yes.
and it's still a relatively new company. We're trying to do so much, get so many different SKUs going, and we are, but yeah, it's hard. You're working on a studio scale spinner 1 second, and then you're diving into an archive collection with Disney the next, and then just the endless what ifs. You think about the Hunter Seeker. It's that's what frustrates me. It's not enough to land all the metal work and get everything perfect, but then you've got to make sure the inspectors, hey, make sure they didn't scuff those stands up. And you're like, we should have just stuck this in a felt bag and let people display it how they want to. But
Yeah.
but no, then you've done all this hard work with just landing the replica. Now you're like, okay, don't let don't let those plaques have scuffs on them. Make sure they're clean. Make sure the plastic looks great. And I mean, how much time have we spent just making sure like it sets level on the display? I don't want
Yeah.
it setting like that. I don't
Yep.
want too much hanging over to the left. I mean, a lot of thought goes into these things.
Yeah.
And then you got to make sure they're packed out right. And then even then, it's like, all right, how do we keep the outer box clean? Because people want that art box, you know. So
There's
let's
a
make
yeah,
it,
there's
it's in, it's endless, right?
there's a tricky element to this, and I learned about something called failure mode analysis, and it's when you
Yep.
develop a product, whatever it is. It could be car part or something. You
Mhm.
you sit down and you try to discover all the ways that it could fail, like where are potential pitfalls in what the finished product should be. And there's a lot with prop replicas because, like we mentioned before, all those elements that have to come together, those materials. uh,
Mhm.
It's not just one material being injected into a mold; it's multiple pieces. How they work together, how they glue together. Is that glue going to fail? Is it going to come off because this material doesn't like that material?
Mhm.
Can we source the correct material? Is that source material going to work with X material? It's yeah, it's a lot. Even if you're making one, if you're sitting down to make one of these in your garage, all those issues you have are going to be present times 500 times 1,000.
Well, that's why you and I engineer well together because of that. Not everybody comes at it that way. I mean, I've always engineered backwards. I'm coming at it from what's going to break first, and I think that was a good thing. Years ago. It seems funny. I've this third time I've talked about the RPF today. When I was younger, almost 30 years ago. I mean, that's how long the RPF's been around now. Back when it was like the Titanic forums, when we went through a prop renaissance. Everybody was still looking for how many blades are on a lightsaber. Yeah, yeah. What's the flash suppressor on Solo's blaster? What is that? There was lots of that. How's a flame ground work? What's calcium carbide? Yeah, so much stuff. Again, a proper renaissance, if you will. Um, as I started to do more private runs, I did a lot of metal work, that sort of thing, but gadgety things, modular things. I always came at it from. I mean, it only took one or two runs to figure out you got to do this backwards. What's going to break first? Because if you're in this for the long haul, if you're going to do one or two runs, I guess people don't put a lot of thought into that. But if you think if you love what you're doing and you want to be around for a long time and go through multiple runs, you got to do it that way because you want whatever you've sold to be doing the same thing now, 5 years later than the time you sold it. And I mean, a good example would be just like on let's say the Hero Emanator from Blade Runner 2049. We've got the physical prop. We got it from the studio that made them for the film. Uh, you would think that would be the difficult part, but no, it's the box or the coffin that we affectionately refer to it that goes in it. I mean, Jared, what's one of the first things we said when we started messing with that coffin? We 3D printed one off just to see what it looked like, and then we were looking at the hinges. And then we're like, man, this area is thin. We can't do this in this material because it's going to crack. If we do it in that material, it's going to split right here. I mean, you instantly start looking at where it's going to break. Why? And we're fortunate that way that we build within. We don't farm our work out that way. Uh, we've done enough runs, handled enough projects that we know how to come at it now. But think about the new company who might just be getting into it and they're otherwise farming it out, or they don't know any better. Man, there's some weird pitfalls out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Waiting on them and again, this is more with regard to a prop replica, unlike a statue or the action figure. That's the same. I mean, man, props are hard, but it's what we love and it's why we do it. So anyway, just a little bit about the mechanics of things here. Sean, have you seen some stuff that I mean, you've seen the process now. You've been around long enough to see how much we obsess with, and we're always printing parts and test fit. And no, that breaks. Make it a little thicker. Let's go a few thousandths longer.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, has that surprised you any to see how seemingly OCD the process is?
No, because I have high standards as you guys do. So, and you want to give your customer the best quality you can. So I think our standards are so high here, we have to go through that process. And yeah, it's frustrating. At sometimes you're like, damn it, it needs to be a little bit bigger here or there. But that's what's going to separate, us from other people. Like you got to go the distance and you got to just tweak it and get it right. Because you don't want a customer calling you up going, well, this sucks or this or that. Like they're not going to do that. Like we're going to go through the painstaking process of getting it right. And like you said, we do it in-house, so that's good. So we could take our measurements and you and Jared could speak back and forth and just dial it in. So I think if you've got higher standards, like, yeah, it's going to be, it's part of the business. And I'm learning that too. So, I mean, there's times you're like, damn, we got to print this again, but you got to do it.
I got to clean this machine again.
Yeah, you got to, but in the end process, like you said, we got a shipment in today, and you open it up and you look at it, you're like, damn, that's awesome. Like you take pride in it.
Yeah, and what I was saying earlier, and I didn't want to suggest I don't when I was talking about the hunter seekers. I was just trying to say, if not for all the crap in between, if we could have if maybe around the fifth sample, we could have thumbs up it, green light, go, and then we wait on it that comes in. But it becomes so laborious. It can be the girlfriend who won't leave.
But I gotta say that, man, there's an excitement and a thrill almost when you work with a partner overseas, a manufacturing partner that gets it like right away, and you're like, oh yeah, they know what they're doing here. Let's give them more. They get more work,
and we've got that going on now, and then you've got the ones that you've held out hope for that disappoint you. And I mean, that's the game too. You're always looking for a new manufacturer who gets you. A new company that you could, hey, who can handle this? Who can handle the electronics for that? And our one of our primaries right now, man, just such a joy to work with. Just like we were talking about the Godzilla tree toppers last week. More atomic breath, and we got it in a couple of days, and we're just like little kids. Yay!
Like
look
this?
at all that.
Yes,
Yeah.
like that. Awesome.
And it's good to be a fan again that way. So that's what I like about this year's agenda. I think we've got some of the speed bumps out of the way, the growing pains, if you will, and everything's been going pretty smooth lately. But I like the way we engineer in a very similar way, and come at stuff. That's a good thing. I was trying to think of anything else we could really cover right now. I had no real agenda with today's video out, with Amy being gone, just that we'd get on and babble. So I think we've done that. We should probably try to keep it under 40 minutes. So unless, Sean, you got any other questions, anything? I should have let you talk more and instead of just running your mouth.
No, I am taught to sit back and observe and listen.
That is a terrible
that's
thing
how I
to say.
learned
You
the
have
best.
not been taught that.
I've been taught that, but that's what I do. I observe it.
I have not. You make it sound like I've lowered the basket. It puts the lotion on its skin. I have not done that to you at all. I have been taught to sit and be quiet.
No, but I've taught myself. Let's say, like I observe a lot. I listen a lot, and I've learned. I feel like I've learned a lot in the last year and a half. It's hard to believe. It's like a year and a half.
Yeah, yeah.
Behind the
It's
scenes, but I've learned a lot. I enjoy learning about it.
yeah.
And
You've
then,
got the. Well, we were talking about that earlier. We'll talk about that later. I was going to say you've got to hear all the. It's always funny to me when I get off the phone with Tom or something, speakerphone call, and then I look at you and you've got the alarmed look on your face.
like, what
Like,
did you just say?
yeah. Jared, I told you about that, how Sean
Yeah.
just hears the worst of these conversations between
Yeah.
me and Tom. And I'll go around the corner and he's like, everything okay? Yeah, you guys all right?
Or you'll come in, you'll be on the phone with him, and you'll put me on the spot. Like, Sean, tell this guy. And I'm like, I ain't saying anything.
Yeah, they're brutal, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
it's yeah.
But it's
Anyway,
all out of love. It's all out of love.
lots of love,
Yeah.
and the fact that he's always wrong. So that's the best part of it. Anyway, yeah, we should go ahead and shut this down. A reminder: we will be at MegaCon next week.
Yeah.
What are the dates, guys?
The show runs from February 6th to the
Ninth, right?
9th. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Thursday, is that right? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah,
When's the
yes,
early-
February 6th to the 9th. Yep.
Yeah.
Is the preview, the early preview Thursday or is it Wednesday?
I got to check. I don't think it actually is technically a preview night, kind of like Comic-Con in San Diego does. I think it's just it just opens on Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah,
Does anybody know our booth number? See, this is where we're lost without Amy. She would have
Amy.
spouted off our booth number and
Oh,
everything else. Anybody know?
I don't remember, but I know it's on our socials, and we'll refresh that again, this weekend. So people making plans, if they want to come see us, just check our social feeds. You'll see the booth number there, and you can confirm the show hours as well.
Okay. Yeah, rock on. And if anybody wants to do a mercy errand and bring Jared and I some Taco Bell or something, that'd be great. We don't get to leave the table for food, so
Chicken quesadillas all day long.
Soft tacos, no sour cream though. I just don't bring me anything with sour cream on it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll-
Chalupa. Chicken chalupa supreme.
I'm not doing sour cream on anything, dude. Sour cream is a cousin of mayonnaise, and I hate mayonnaise.
Oh, I'll do it all.
No, this is
Do
where
sour cream and
you want
mayonnaise.
potato salad. No, I don't eat potato salad. I hate mayonnaise, and sour cream is a cousin of mayonnaise. So just don't bring me anything with sour cream on it.
Potato salad for rye. Got it.
No. Little
Nachos and
pizza.
cheese.
I'm mainly a soft taco guy. I like burritos.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Cholitos and what happened to them and why they're gone one day. I really remember a Cholito back in the day.
Did you just
You
make
don't
that
remember
up? Is that a real
Cholitos?
thing?
That's a real thing from the 90s, man.
I don't remember that.
Man, Pearl Jam and Cholitos.
It sounds like
thing,
something Taco Bell would do. Like they just make up a name that sounds like Mexican food, and that's good enough.
Yeah, somebody who makes up names for like the pharmaceutical industry named that. Like Cholito.
You can chill and eato.
Cholito. Man, I was all about a Cholito back in the day. But comment below if you remember the Cholito.
Yeah.
Anyway, you guys have a good weekend. Talk to everybody soon. See you.
Bye.
All right, guys.